نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, it's been a year or so absence. I wasn't here last year. So it's another great opportunity, alhamdulillah. One is to be given that chance to dedicate whatever few hours that we have left of Ramadan in the most blessed of places, the masjid, and also to be involved in the most blessed of work of reciting the Quran, praying our salah, and enjoining good and forbidding evil. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us more opportunities like this so that we can continue this endeavor and this work. Again, alhamdulillah, since my arrival, our hosts been very kind and gracious, alhamdulillah. Without even the opportunity to even ask something, it's already provided, mashallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept everyone's efforts. Ameen. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ya ayyuhan nas, kulu mimma fil ardi halalan tayyiba. O those, ya ayyuhan nas, O mankind. So here we find that in many places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the Ahli Kitab. In so many places He refers to the believers. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses humans, all humans. And He says, eat from that which is on the earth, which is both halal and also tayyib. So we know that there's actually a method to make something halal. There is a full methodology, is similar to the sort of Jewish Shakita method as well, which already existed. Within the Christian faith, there is no ritual slaughter anymore, with the acceptance that God sacrificed His only Son for the sins of mankind, and therefore all ritualistic behavior and acts, according to some interpretations, is no longer required. The Jewish community still have their methods, and obviously the Muslims have their method. We know, for example, that when the animal is cut, that the heart continues to pump, and as the blood pressure drops in the animal, the heart pumps more. Obviously, because the blood is now being pushed out. And we know, for example, that there's numerous diseases which can be passed on through the blood. So I'm not saying that that's the reason. I'm just giving a potential hikmah as to why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given that method. And alhamdulillah, we focus a lot on halal. We make sure that we eat halal. Maybe we don't make enough certainty. We see a sign on a wall which says halal, so we think, okay, it's going to be halal. There's a Muslim brother inside. Similarly, we see that definition on the back of a wrapper or something, and it says halal, so we think, look, this must be halal. The issue is with that term halal, is that it's not authenticated by any external body. Like, for example, vegetarian is, vegan is. So you can't label something which is not vegetarian as vegetarian. You can't label something which is not vegan as vegan. Well, potentially you could label something as halal and you could have anything inside, because there's no adjudicator, there's no legislator, there's no system that's ensuring that when somebody uses the word halal, that is exactly what it says on the tin. So we have to trust people. We have to rely on people. And sometimes, opportunities, maybe greed, whatever, gets the better of us, and we don't carry out our due diligence to make sure that, is this what I'm consuming halal? Tayyib is an area which we don't even give that much attention to. So we found recently in the last sort of 10 years, 15 years, something free range, and we're starting to hear the word organic, and we're starting to hear these phrases which were new and were not heard of before. And that's because people are now becoming a little bit more aware of how the animal is raised, how the animal is looked after, what it's fed, and therefore people are making a conscious decision to only support those type of farms and only support those type of areas in which the animal is looked after. But again, we as Muslims dropped the ball, because we were told 1400 years ago that not only should you be eating halal, you should also be eating tayyib. Tayyib meaning that you got to be careful what the animal is being fed. So we heard of obviously the foot and mouth disease some years ago. mad cow disease. And that is because some animals were being fed, dead animals from the past that had been killed, and then now the animals were being fed this. So it was going within the system. But yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned that, look, make sure you're looking at what source, what the animal is being reared on, what it's raised on. When we go to the shop and we see free-range eggs, and when we see non-labeled eggs, then those non-labeled eggs are caged hen eggs. Have you ever seen how that hen is kept? Within a very confined space. It's literally, as soon as it's a chick, it's in there and it dies in there. And you find that because they're so next to each other, they'll peck each other. And when they peck each other, they'll get infected. And that creature could die in there and could be dead in there for a long time. This is a new concept of industrial farming now, in which, because of our appetite, quite literally, for poultry, and our appetite for lamb, then people are finding different ways in order to maximize on that. And then this concept of tayyib is being put to one side. Why? Because it's commercial. And alhamdulillah, as Muslims, we have great financial clout and power. 75% of the mutton which is bought in the UK is bought by Muslims. 75%. Meaning, if there was no halal market within the mutton and the lamb, the whole British industry in that area would collapse. On the chickens, we're a little bit behind, 15%. So even though we're a 4%, 5% community, we consume 15% of the poultry. So like I said, we like our chicken and we like our meat. So we can actually dictate that market. Our financial power, we can dictate that market to say, no, this is what we're going to accept. This is the way it's got to be. This is the way we want to make sure. So halal and tayyiban. Similarly, I did some work maybe 4 or 5 years ago on this whole topic of stunning, particularly stunning when it comes to chickens. And there is what's called a water bath, a water bed, in which when the chickens come in, they're put upside down, shackled from their ankles, and then they go along this conveyor belt, and eventually they come to this water bed, and then the water bed is lifted, and an electric current is fired through that water bed. And what that electric current is supposed to do is knock out those chickens. So then when they come out the other side, the slaughterer can just slit without the wings flapping, so the wings don't break, because people don't like broken wings. And also it's a lot quicker, because again, this huge appetite, the thousands of poultry that we're eating. So there's got to be faster, 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 faster. And what you find, you see, is even though the voltage is kept the same, you find, and obviously those of you who studied a little bit of physics, will find that the resistance of each chicken varies. Because the resistance is based upon the water that the particular chicken can have in it. Some chickens are big chickens, some chickens are small chickens. Similarly, the shackle, which is making the connection, so if you study a little bit of electricity, then depending on how good that connection is, will depend on how well the current is going through. So you find that even though the voltage is the same, the resistance varies. So as a consequence, the current varies. It has to. And if the current varies, then each chicken is getting a different current. So some chickens are being knocked out, but some chickens are being killed. Some chickens are being killed. Now, they won't allow the chicken then to be left to see if it comes around again. But from the research that's been done, numerous chickens actually die after that stunning. Then the blade is passed over it. Okay? But are we concerned? Or is it, I don't want to pay more than $2.99 for my chicken and chips. I don't want to pay more than that. And yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not only instructing Muslims, He's instructing An-Nas, all people. Why? Why? Because yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created animals for us to eat, but He's not created animals for us to abuse. Yeah? We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the humans the best of creature. Why? Because it has the capacity to do what we're doing, alhamdulillah, which is to come to the masjid, which is to worship, which is to look after one another, to look after the climate, to look after the plants, to look after everything else. We've been given this responsibility. So similarly, we've been given this responsibility to say that, yes, you can consume animals, but you have to do it in a way which is not causing them any undue harm. Likewise, we can use animals for transportation, but again, we cannot use animals in such a way that's causing them harm. Like we know from a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ will say that don't sit on your camels whilst you're talking to each other. Dismount. Take the weight off them. Don't cause them any unnecessary harm. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ, and don't follow the footsteps of shaitan. إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ, for indeed he is an open enemy to you. So Allah SWT connects this part to the first part. Why? Because shaitan is going to whisper to you. It's going to whisper to you, whether it's, it's going to cost more, or it's going to be hassle, you've got to drive over there. I was mentioning to some relatives a few days ago, that back when there was no external body that was carrying out any legislation, this is sort of in the 90s, I said we used to go to a farm and we used to slaughter our own, because we weren't sure about where you're getting halal from, where you're not getting halal from. That's how uncertain we were. Now, alhamdulillah, we do have a body which is doing as best as it can in order to ensure that at least to the best of their ability that there is some method and there is halal. إِنَّمَا يَأْمُرُكُمْ بِالسُّوءِ وَالْفَحْشَاءِ وَأَن تَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Why? Because shaitan is an open enemy to us. What does he do? He encourages us, he provokes us, he motivates us, he inspires us in order to do wrong and in order to do sinful things, and also to make statements against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what we don't know. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا أَلْفَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا. And when it is said to them, follow that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed, they respond that no, rather we will follow that which we found our forefathers doing. أَوَلَوْ كَانَ آبَاؤُهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْءٌ وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ. Even though their forefathers did not understand anything, nor were they guided. So similarly, whenever we understand something, the ulama say in front of us, the educators, the informers of something, then there's nothing, we shouldn't be sort of responding back and saying, oh, well, our elders used to do this. Or this used to be our practice. This is what we've always done. This is the way it's always been. And here are two ways in which a person can understand the world around him and as a consequence understand what Allah wants from that person. One is aql. We have been gifted with aql. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us something which is rare that is given to any creature. It's not necessarily that we have a big brain, but relatively speaking to our body size, our brain is very big mass-wise. Allah has gifted us that brain. But it's not just a brain which just sits inside of our skull, but it allows us to think. It allows us to rationalize. It allows us to understand the world. It allows us to understand our place in society. Unfortunately, if it's not managed with the heart, if the iman is not in the heart, so the brain is not managed, then this can lead a person to thinking that he is God, like Fir'aun did. Because his heart, where it had no iman. So when the heart didn't have no iman, it did not manage the aql just went unfettered, uncontrolled. And this is what the danger can be, that when those of us who are gifted, either intellectually, or those of us who are gifted financially, or those who are gifted with opportunities, we sometimes stray away from the path. We sometimes stray away from the path because instead of ascribing this back to Allah, we ascribe it to ourselves that, oh, this is because I'm a smart guy. This is because I made a really good business opportunity. This is because I know how to make a good deal. This is because I did that. This is because I studied. This is because whilst my mates were playing outside, I was, going over my revising. So it's down to me. So it's a double-edged sword. And the other way is, if a person is not applying his aql, that Allah gives him hidayah. Allah gives him hidayah. وَمَثَلُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا كَمَثَلِ الَّذِي يَنْعِقُ بِمَا لَا يَسْمُعُ إِلَّا دُعَاءٌ وَنِدَاءٌ. And the similitude of those who disbelieve is like that person who is shouting, and that person, بِمَا لَا يَسْمُعُ, which he cannot hear, and all he can hear is screams and shouts. So it's like, for example, two people sort of talking to each other, and that person is not listening to them, and that person, they're sort of talking over each other. I'm sure we've all been there when we're having our heated conversation with our wives. Yeah, no one's actually listening to each other. Yeah, They're shouting about something else, you're shouting about something else. After a while you think, wait a minute, I'm not even talking about that. Why are you even talking about that? Yeah? Why? Because everyone's in a rage. Everyone's in a rage. Right? You just want to prove your point and shut that person up. They want to prove their point and shut you up. There's no one here to actually understand each other. And this is the same way. Allah SWT gives that similitude. It's like just people shouting and all you can hear is just shouts and screams and noise. But no one's really understanding each other. So in the same way, when those who Allah SWT seal their hearts, when they hear the Quran or they hear the argumentation based on the hadith, then all they hear is noise. Yeah, I hear you saying something, brother, but I don't know what you're talking about. I understand the words you're using. I get the meaning of the words you're using, but it's not really going anywhere. Summun bukmun umyun fahum la yaqilun. Deaf, dumb and blind, they will not understand. Now this does not mean literally that they're deaf, dumb and blind, but meaning they may as well be deaf, dumb and blind because our senses were given to us in order to appreciate and understand the world around us and think that, subhanallah, if I don't expect my iPhone 6 to turn into an iPhone 14, if I leave it in the ground for 1 million years, or for 2 million years, or for 10 million years, then how can I expect that an ape-like creature eventually became a human? And if I cannot then accept that an ape-like creature became a human, then that means we've been created. And if we've been created, then we have a creator. And if we have a creator, then what does our creator want from us? And if we know what our creator wants from us, then that's it, you're already on Iman. And that wasn't a leap of faith, that was just logic, reasoning. There was no leap of faith there at all, that way you got to just close your eyes blindly and say, look, that's it. It was logical, applied. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kulu min tayyibati ma razaqnakum washkuru lillahi in kuntum iyyahu ta'budun. Oh, those of you who believe, so now we get addressed. Now specifically the believers. Oh, those of you who believe, eat from the tayyibat, the good things. The good things. Unfortunately we have a habit, I'm not going to call out too much, where we either eat excessively, we eat the wrong type of food. So, we've been given a body. The body's purpose was not necessarily just to seek its pleasure. Even though we're permitted to enjoy the pleasure of the flesh. We're not, monasticism doesn't exist in Islam. Celibacy does not exist in Islam. Being a vegetarian does not, I was going to say being a vegetable, but being a vegetarian doesn't exist in Islam. We've been allowed to eat and enjoy. Allah SWT has given us that gift, that enjoy. I don't need you to go, the only time you go into solitude is for the 9-10 days of Ramadan. There's no need for you to become a monk and dedicate your whole life to be. There's no need for you to become a nun. There's no need for you to give up meat for me. There's no need to give up this. There's no need to eat and enjoy. But have a balance. Don't be eating things which is going to give you diabetes. Don't be eating things which is going to give you a heart condition. Don't be eating these sorts of things. So really, again, we drop the ball again. When we should be the most healthiest of people. As an ummah, when we should be the most healthiest of people, unfortunately, we're sort of a little bit we've dropped out of the Champions League a long time ago. We're close to relegation. There's going to be a points deduction coming up soon as well. Might just drop straight through the championship and end up in League One. It shouldn't be like that. We should be at the forefront. We should be leading on these sorts of things. Also, in those cases, whenever Allah SWT gives something, then washkuru lillah. Express your gratitude to Him. Because if you're not expressing your gratitude, then that ni'mah will go and then a musibat will befall you. Now you'll turn your hands to Allah. So why wait for the musibat to come for you to turn to Allah? Enjoy the good times as well. And if you're enjoying the good times and doing shukr to Allah, then maybe the musibat will never come. But if you're not being grateful to Allah when the good times are there, then maybe the musibat is a ni'mah for you. Maybe that musibat is going to turn you back towards Allah. And the next key part there is, ma razaqnakum, that we have given to you. So yes, we have the asbab. We go to work, we get paid, but at the end of the day, rizq has been decreed for you, and that is also coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إنما حرم عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير وما أحل به لغير الله. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made haram upon you Al-Mayta. Now, al-mayta is sometimes translated as carrion, but al-mayta means any animal that's been killed without the normal method of zabiha. Any animal that's been killed without the method of zabiha, that is called al-mayta. As I said, sometimes it's translated as carrion. So that is made haram for you. Waddam, blood is made haram for you. Walahm al-khinzir, and the meat of khinzir is made haram for you. That's why, there are some people, mashallah, who always, when they're picking a name for their child, they just pick it from the Quran. Yeah, so like minha, fiha, they don't understand what it means. Like, what does minha mean? What does fiha mean? And then they say, acha, ye naam bahut acha, kya hai? Khinzir, Quran se. So you have to be careful. Don't pick any name out of the Quran. Speak to the ulama. That what kind of name should I give my child? I found a word in the Quran. What was the word? Oh, no, that's not a good name. Are you sure? Yeah. Try something else. Okay, I'll flick through. وَلَحْمَ الْخِنْزِيرِ وَمَا أُحِلَّ بِهِ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ, and anything which has been slaughtered on some other deity or on the name of some other god. So from this, we can now withdraw and understand all those things which will be made impermissible upon us. And obviously, life gets a little bit difficult now because we eat processed food. And because we eat processed food, we're always looking for this, that, the other, and all these things. So it's a little bit more challenging than it used to be back in the day. It used to be a lot simpler back in the day. But because we are buying processed food now, there's all sorts of stuff going in. This gelatin, the other gelatin, and all the rest of it. So we have to be a little bit more equipped, a little bit more understanding of what that is. So yes, do look out for the vegetarian sign, but do also look out for the vegan side, but also be aware that, a vegetarian can also drink alcohol. So you ain't that you just see vegetarian, thought, that's it, load it up. But daddy says vodka on it. Yeah, but it's vegetarian. Let's put 5 of them in. Must be halal. So we need to be, again, educate ourselves. But when I say educate ourselves, it's also as a ummah, because we are the ummah. We look at the ulama and put everything on their shoulders, but it's our responsibility to have an organization which is doing that for us. It's our responsibility to have an organization which is, it's our responsibility. It's not the ulama's responsibility. They're providing a khidmah. But it's the community's responsibility to make sure that we have organizations that are doing that research, doing that work. Now, obviously, they're talking about laboratory synthesized meat. Yeah, this is going to be the new thing. There's going to be laboratory synthesized. So is that halal? Is that not halal? Do we have to slaughter the petri dish or something? How do we work that out? Who's doing the research? Do we care? Why don't we care? Alhamdulillah, we're wealthy. We have businesses. We own big businesses now in the UK Muslim community. Are we putting anything aside to say, okay, we need someone doing research in this area. We need someone to understand this. This is coming up. It's not going to disappear. It'll be on our doorstep sooner or later. There's this big push, isn't there, that cows are blowing wind and it's adding to the climate change, and therefore this is a big problem. So we need to stop, eating cows, وغيرها. فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. But again, this is the practical and pragmatic approach of our deen. However, if somebody is compelled without transgression and neither with baghi, desire, then there's no sin upon him. Meaning there are certain circumstances where a person is in a difficult situation, where there is no alternative food for him or her to consume. So in those cases, the Sharia has lifted that responsibility in order to maintain and keep himself alive. So, that's why we say that every mas'ala has to have a context. So if somebody says, is eating hamburger halal? Everybody in this room will say, no, hamburger is haram. Everybody will say eating a hamburger is haram. However, our students always give us this, what if you're in the jungle? So they always say, Ustaji, but what if you're in the jungle and there's nothing else around but a hamburger? So I would say, Ya Allah, how have you ended up in a jungle with nothing but a hamburger, for crying out loud? Well, there was a plane flying over and they were doing like a drop-off. Like drones now. Drones are going to start delivering food, aren't they, Ustaji? Are they? Okay. And one drone was flying across and had a McDonald's, and obviously it had a little bit of a problem. It crashed. Also, it crashed in the same place where you were in the jungle as well. Yes. Wow. Imagination that the students have. Now, it is fard upon him to eat it. Why? Because he has to stay alive. And if he doesn't eat it when he has the ability to eat it, so therefore context is very important when we give a response. Inna Allah ghafurur rahim, for indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is forgiving and merciful. إن الذين يكتمون ما أنزل الله من الكتاب ويشترون به ثمنا قليلا أولئك ما يأكلون في بطونهم إلا النار ولا يكلمهم الله يوم القيامة ولا يزكيهم ولهم عذاب أليم. And then a threat as well as a warning that he did as for those people who conceal what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed in the book, and what they do is they buy with it in exchange for a paltry price. So for they will, cover, conceal, change their response in order to please a particular body or to please a particular organization. So we have to be very, very careful in these circumstances that, in order to, give a response that will justify somebody, whatever, these are fabricated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that this person is consuming in his own stomach nothing but fire. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not speak on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Speak meaning that there will be no mercy upon him. And nor will they be purified. And for them is a painful adhab, alimun, yani a painful punishment. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الضَّلَالَةَ بِالْهُدَىٰ. These are those people who buy deviation in exchange of guidance. So they are actually transacting. And what they're doing is they're selling guidance for deviation. We're selling our deen for something else. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed us with this deen, this great honor, this great privilege in order for us to be guided through this life and get the best of abodes in the hereafter. But these people see the benefit in the short term. They see some financial gain. They see some whatever, it'll be all right. I'm getting these chickens for half the price, but I don't know where they're from. But the brother looks like a Muslim guy. Well, how do you know he looks like a Muslim guy? Well, he's got like brown skin, hasn't he? Oh, I see. Yeah, and he said a few Arabic words. What were the words? Al-Ittihad, I think. And Manchester City. Right? So, it must be a decent Muslim brother. So it had nothing to do with the fact that you were getting the chickens for half the price that you normally get them. That had nothing to do with it. It's just the fact that he mentioned Man City and Al-Ittihad. So, we get in a situation where we can get a good deal. We're getting them at a much cheaper price than anywhere else. We could be making a good make on this, good markup. Right? And who's we to start looking at this brother's heart? Then we start slowly becoming a big Sufi. And all the, we've got the answers now. I'm not supposed to look into this brother's heart. As I say, as long as he says. So this is the danger. All it is for what? An extra £1.50 per chicken. This person is willing to sell his deen. Okay, he's willing to sell his deen. And what they do is they get by punishment in exchange of forgiveness. That's what they're doing. They're transacting. Because obviously the Muhajirun in particular were businessmen, so they knew about transactions. So everything they used to look at was in a kind of a transactionary way. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala approached them in that way. So the Ansar were farmers. So you'll see a lot of farming analogies about crops and fruit and things like that. And the Muhajirun were businessmen. So you'll see a lot of business analogies. So that the Sahaba radiyallahu majma'in, who this Quran was first addressed to, could understand it straight away. That, okay, this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning here. And obviously they became the callers to Islam, alhamdulillah. فَمَا أَصْبَرُهُمْ عَلَى النَّارِ. How bold they are upon the fire. How much, confident they are that, I'll deal with it on the day of judgment. It's all right, something I can handle. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ نَزَّلَ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ. That is because indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed the book with truth. وَإِنَّ الَّذِينَ اخْتَلَفُوا فِي الْكِتَابِ لَفِي شِقَاقٍ بَعِيدٍ. And as for those people who differ and dispute with regards to the book, then they are in a far distant conflict. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.